So when I first saw it, I mean, I'm assuming it's a bit like other big companies, so like Google when they switched to Alphabet being the parent company, so all the individual products could live on their own and then have their own strengths, because obviously YouTube's a very strong brand. I've got a YouTube thing logo on my jacket. And then you've got like, Calendar is a very strong brand. I like this sort of the suite of stuff, which is not search focused. So then search can be its own thing and allows, Facebook to even evolve its own individual brand without affecting the rest. So from that point of view, it makes logical sense to say this is part of one family of products, but they're not necessarily as related. And so that Instagram doesn't have to be hugely integrated with Facebook unless it makes logical sense from a product point of view. So yeah, I mean, it makes sense. So in a sense, the name doesn't really matter. Like it could be anything or anything that's it's like atoms or molecules or something that's like, small pieces, like something that says small pieces are part of a bigger picture.
Yeah.
I mean, Meta, which brings me on to the second point, is Meta seems to be the opposite of that as like the meaning. Metas usually mean like a thing within a thing, which is very specific, or like an extra level down. I imagine a bit like Inception. That's how I imagine when people say meta or meta tag.
I always think like metadata, like data about data.
Yeah, yes, exactly. So in a sense, it doesn't make sense from the name point of view because that's the opposite of what this is. This is like the collection of data, which is a dangerous connotation to have for Facebook in itself. Because, big tech companies are always like criticized for data, like that's always the big critique. So, and Facebook in particular, especially with all the court cases and stuff that's happening around the world, the stuff with Cambridge Analytica. There's the documentary on Netflix which goes into that with like the journalist from like The Guardian who's gone into like really strong details of stuff like Brexit and all these sort of votes that have happened and things which you might seem as questionable collection of data and showing people fake stuff or highlighting not nice things on Facebook, sort of like inflammatory things. And people think it's a chicken egg situation. What comes first, the inflammatory post or the inflammatory view that likes the post, and so it's questionable what comes first. But it's with the whistleblowers and all this other negative press that they've been having, that weird connection between data and meta seems a bit dangerous. But to be honest, it doesn't really make a difference. This is just the ability for the other brands to have breathing space. In terms of the logo, I think when it animates, because it's like a loop, like what do they call it? A Mobius strip, I think they called it in in the Marvel universe, where it sort of inverts like a sort of a 3D train set going up and down like a loop. It makes sense from the top, but when you look at it from the side, it kind of seems like an Infinity 8, which would have made sense if they just called it Infinity, but they made it maybe because then that means that this is ongoing and includes other things. But maybe that's too much close to like the Marvel universe. But then MetaVerse feels like the multiverse. So maybe that has had some kind, because culture impacts culture, right? And so that could have been a thing. But then with the 2D version of the logo, I've seen some interesting mocks. I mean, it basically looks like a pair of, I'm not sure if we can say the thing, a pair of bollocks, basically. But that's an unfortunate thing. Like I think if they emphasize the 3D element of it, it could look really cool. But then it's a logo and it has to sit in different face. But to be honest, I don't think it matters that much. Mm-hmm. I think this is all strategic because of everything else that's going on.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think the thing is that the timing is probably beneficial. The name, I would kind of like, if I had to give it like a score out of 10, it's like very neutral. Like I think it's like a 6 to me. Like it's not. Like, it doesn't really do much for me. I think it makes sense. Like, I think the one thing I when this first came out, I had, like, empathize with Facebook employees. Say you work for Oculus, right? And, like, you have nothing to do with Facebook or Instagram or, like, the social portions of the company. It must be very annoying to say that, like, you work at Facebook, but you're doing something. Like, you're in AR. Like, you're making hardware. You're designing, like, virtual reality experiences. So those employees must be super stoked about the name change. I I think Meta is an okay name. Like I think I'm a little bit warmer to it than you were. I agree that it's like kind of a little misleading, but I do like if they really are. A lot of the background from what I've been reading is that they are going big on this idea of a metaverse. And when I think about a metaverse, have you ever seen the movie Ready Player One?
I don't think so.
So basically, this kid puts on a VR headset, and then they go into a virtual world, and they compete in games that this game maker made. It's an awesome movie. I highly recommend it. It has a very much like a gamer, like kind of like audience and like vibe to it, but it also has like a post-apocalyptic feel to the movie. But anyways, in that game, they're basically building this universe. And this is like, you put on a headset and like people from all over the world, regardless of like your socioeconomic class, when you put your VR headset on, you can be whoever you want. And that's part of the value. You can kind of design your avatar. So in the real world, if like, my name's Ryan, in this other world, you can kind of pick a name, you could pick a costume and like look like a robot or something. So, yeah, so long story short, I think like overall, I think strategically as a business, it makes sense. I think I'm kind of neutral on the name. I don't think it adds a lot of, I think it doesn't, it's not, it didn't blow my socks off, but it also wasn't, I don't think it's terrible.